Hello, one and all, and welcome to the podcast we call the Fantastival with myself, Steve Nussbaum. In the podcast, where I invite my guests to come on and talk to me all about their musical tastes, their memories, their experiences, and they get to collect their fancy festivals, which I have christened Fantastivals. We are now on episode number 135. I hope everyone is well, and summer is here. The holidays have begun. Summer is on its way. I hope you're all having a wonderful start to your summer holiday experience. If you're going away, have the best time. And you can also delve into the back cat of the wonderful Fantastival podcast if you are a relatively new listener. In my last episode, I had the awesome Maz Atai on. It was so great to reconnect with Maz. 15 years since I last spoke to Maz. An absolute pleasure speaking to the gent. He collated an amazing fantasy festival, and I was so happy and joyful to speak to him. So that was episode number 134. So if you've not listened to that one, go back into our Fantastival vaults and give that one a listen. But that was the old, this is the new. This is, like I said, 135. And this week, if you are active on the new music community on Twitter, you'll be more than familiar with the hashtag Murdered Song of the Day. And I'm delighted to have the inventor, the forefather, the overlord who started the hashtag. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Stevie T.
Hello there, how are you doing?
I'm all good, Steve. I'm so happy to have you on.
Thank you for bringing me up. That's fantastic. I love that. Brilliant.
Like I said, the inventor, the forefather, the overlord. We're going to find out all about it. It's going to be an amazing chat. But before we find out about your musical tastes and the hashtag, I always like to check in with my guests, find out how they've been. It's been a crazy 3 years now. We seem to be on the other side of it, thankfully. But Steve, mate, from a mental health perspective, how are you doing?
I'm good now. I'm really in a good place now. During lockdown and stuff, I wasn't. It was basically the reason I picked up back my guitar back up, because I was homeschooling for quite a long time. My partner Victoria, she works in the NHS, so she was working full time. I'm just immediately window installer, so I got furloughed, which at first was great, but the homeschooling kind of took a toll on me. I was a bit demented. My son had never ever told me he hated me until homeschooling, and then it was every single day.
It's nice we can laugh about it now, right? So it seems like we had a bit of a similar journey. So I got furloughed, enjoyed it, and then the homeschooling started, and you find yourself trying. So I was trying to teach a 5-year-old how to read that I found extremely difficult and not really my forte. You know, and my wife's a teacher, so she was teaching other kids when I was trying to teach my own kids. So it sounds like we had a fairly similar experience. Yeah,
it wasn't good. I mean, I quite enjoyed learning stuff again myself. I quite enjoyed that part of it, because when I was at school, I didn't stick in, and I hated it. But I quite enjoyed doing it again. But my son did not. So yeah. So I'm glad it's all over now.
So I'm hoping the bridges have now been reconnected. So your son now, from saying he hates you, obviously now loves his father again, and it's all good.
Oh yes. He always loved me by the end of the day, but we started off doing the Joe Wicks when it started, and that was pretty cool. We get up religiously every morning and do Joe Wicks for I think he was in it for about 4 or 5 months, and I was in the best shape I'd ever been in my whole life. and then he got a bit bored, because every day we tried to get a shout out from Joe Wicks. You know, we'd send a million texts, please give us a shout out, and we never got one. And he kind of, because we never got one, he kind of lost patience with it and gave up.
Yeah.
But well, that was good. Yeah, that was all right. That part of it was quite good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to try and get involved with your heroes, whether it's someone who's doing music or doing a workout that you're taking part in every day. So, Steve, I obviously introduced you as the guy who invented the Murdered Song of the Day that we'll talk all about. But for anyone listening who might not be familiar with yourself, give us a bit more detail around kind of who you are, kind of what's your story, a bit more about the myth and the legend and the forefather who created the Murdered Song of the Day.
Just a guy who absolutely loves music. I've been into music since I was probably 6-7 years old. It's always, I don't know, just sends you to a different place. And then I don't know, just over the years, just love music. Always love music. It's in my veins. It does things to me that other things don't. And I don't know, I just And then obviously homeschooling came about. I actually hadn't picked up the guitar for about 10 years. So I started playing my guitar sort of late 90s, obviously big into Oasis and things. And so I thought I could play Wonderwall. So obviously that was my first ever song that I ever played, Wonderwall. It's like, yes, I've got a song, I've done a song, brilliant. And just, I got right into the Oasis and the Verve, playing all their tunes. And then when the little one came along, so little one, he's 13 now.
Right.
He's nearly the same height as me. But when he came along, I just kind of lost my way with the guitar. And I still always listen to music, but lost my way with the guitar. And it wasn't until lockdown where I sort of picked it back up again and started playing again and discovered Twitter, which was sort of my escape. Seeing a few guys in the same situation as me, and they were playing some tunes, and I was like, I could do that. So I seen there's a guy called Sean McLaughlin. I don't know if you know Sean. He was like one of the first guys that I seen on Twitter. He was playing a bit of Oasis stuff. I thought I could do that. So I done a couple of Noel songs, a couple of Oasis songs, and we just kind of connected. And then then James Houston kind of popped up on the scene, and Scotty Shaw popped up on the scene, and we just kind of went from there. And then one day I thought I'll just put Murdered Song of the Day. I thought if I put Murdered Song of the Day, people can just say whatever they want about me, and I'll just go, well, it's murdered. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter because I don't think I'm great at guitar or great at singing, but I'm okay. And I just thought if somebody wants to pop at me, well, it's in the title, Murdered Song of the Day. So kind of went from there.
And you didn't know?
And it just kind of,
you didn't know any of the guys beforehand. Sorry, like I
knew nobody, none of them. I'd been talking to Scotty Shaw for quite a while on Twitter before that, but we'd never been playing guitar to each other or anything. We'd just been discussing music because we'd done a few of the indie pub crawl nights. They were quite messy. But then Indie Rob started all that. It was pretty good. That was like a little escape. But yeah, no, I didn't know any of the guys. And so one at a time, we sort of popped our head up and played a tune. And it's quite funny because it's more than 2 years ago now. So it was like 2 years in, I think it was like April. It was 2 years in April that I started it. And I can actually like type it in and go back 2 years. And you can see the difference in the confidence from then to doing it now. Whereas like, it's the fear of hitting the red button. It's like, honestly, I used to shake. I was terrified to just press that. It would take me like 5 minutes to press the red button. Like, and it's like, I was like pushing my hand towards it, but I couldn't do it. And then, I don't know, the more you do it, obviously, the more confidence you got. And then you get good comments back, and it's like, wow, people like this. So, but it's grown and grown and grown. I mean, there's loads of people on it now. So there must be like 10, 15 people that use the hashtag now, and it's such a buzz to see somebody using it, you know. But yeah, I love it, absolutely love it.
So how did it feel the first time when you put a video out? Because I guess it's similar to podcasting. The first time you do it, you're very nervous in terms of reaction, and you mentioned like the fear of like the red button. So I guess how did you feel when you first put you playing your first cover out there?
Well, you kind of sit and anticipating some feedback coming back, and then maybe nothing happens for half an hour. You're like, oh, well, it's a bit crap. But, you know, instantly you got like 6 or 7 replies straight away coming back saying, oh, that's brilliant. I wish I had the courage to do that sort of thing. I'm like, well, you can. Just do it. Because, I mean, I think there's quite a lot of people like watch Murdered Song of the Day on the outskirts wanting to do it. And then once you do it once, you kind of get the bug. It's like, it's really addictive. I have to stop myself quite a few times and putting myself out there too much, because it's like, no, it's great. The feedback you always get. I've had about 2 negative feedbacks in all the posts I've ever posted, and I've posted a lot of posts. I've done a lot of songs, and I've had 2 sort of negative comments out of all that. And I mean, on Twitter especially, that's pretty amazing, to be fair.
That is pretty amazing. I guess if anyone's listening to this, right, and is like playing guitar in their bedroom and is apprehensive about gigging themselves or pushing their own music and is kind of on the fence, right, so to speak, about putting anything out, what would you say to them? So if someone goes into your DMs, right, and goes, Steve, I really want to do this, but I'm nervous and I'm apprehensive about singing on a camera or putting out a video on Twitter of me playing guitar. What would you say to them to bring them forward? What would your message be to them?
If they use the hashtag, they're only ever going to get positive feedback. There's not one of us will like slate you or give you shit. I don't know. It's just like just do it. I don't know. I mean, I had to buy a new memory card because there was that many bloopers that I'd done on the few times I used to do songs. It would be like 50 takes before I would actually release one. But no, just do it. It's the best thing. Honestly, God, it's so great to get even at least one positive feedback. It's such a buzz. Because I know I'm not brilliant. Some of the guys are phenomenal. Some of them are great guitar players. Some of them are great singers. Some of them are both. But yeah, just do it. It's the best. Honestly, it's the best feeling ever. Once you've done it and you get the positive feedback, even 2 or 3 comments, it's just like it's such a buzz. It's so good, and it's good for your mental health as well. It's really good.
Yeah,
really good.
I found this podcast very good for my mental health because it gives me an outlet to talk to people, whether I know them very well or not, about music. And that kind of got me through furlough to a certain extent and through COVID. So you've mentioned like collaborators. So you've mentioned James Houston and Scott, but I think we should shout out. I think it's only fair to shout out the rest of the guys, right? So you've got Sam Lambert, who's been on the show, who I know contributes.
Yeah,
he recently
Sam's
made a
Sam's a
comeback.
cool guy, yeah.
So we've got Sam. I know Joe Peacock's got involved before, and I know Joe's got some new material coming out soon.
Joe's a hero of mine.
And we got Kelly Cresswell.
Kelly Cresswell, yeah. We got John Bostock, Andy Johnston, Stephen Haggart, Paul Nixon. I don't know if you know Paul Nixon at all. Aye, Paul Nixon. He was sort of in it early on, doing some covers for us. He's done the most amazing cover of Purple Rain, and for the life of me, I can't find it on Twitter, and I'm gutted about it because it is, honest to God, it's amazing. You got Laura Jane Kimbo. There's a new guy who came on the scene called Jimmy Kay. He's a great singer. A guy called Smoggy. Ian Frank, and James came round to mine about 2 Saturdays ago, and we had a bit of a jam down the bottom of the garden, and that was probably the best experience I've ever had in my entire life. It was so good.
Oh, I saw. So there's some videos of that, Steve, that I saw. So saw you doing.
Yeah.
I saw you doing Get Back by the Beatles. It was like you're having a great time. Was that the first time you met and played together then?
Well, we done one last year, but there was quite a lot of us. So Joe was here last year, Joe and Catherine, Scotty Shaw, Ian. They were all here last year, and James couldn't make it last year because James had COVID. So I tried to arrange the same thing again this year, but people were just so busy and stuff. So it was just the 3 of us, but we just sort of jammed all day, and it was so good. But the thing I'm gutted about most is I took 3 hours of footage on my phone, and the microphone didn't work.
Oh man!
So there's some absolute classic tunes that we've done, honestly, that we'll never see the light of day.
Just means you'll have to do it again next year, Steve. Right? You have to get him back next year to do the follow-up.
Well, there may be something bigger on the horizon for next year. We'll see.
Oh,
maybe.
Nice little teaser. Nice little teaser there. So I must ask you: do you have a favourite video that you've put out there? So you obviously mentioned "Purple Rain" by Paul Nixon, but is there a favourite of yours that you've put out where you actually think, actually, I smashed that and that's wicked?
I've done a Stereophonics cover a while back, which I thought it's not very often I'll look at my videos and go, that's pretty good. But I've done a cover of Stereophonics song. It's one of the newer ones, and I thought that's bloody good. I've done the Johnny Cash Hurt cover, and I must admit I thought that was pretty damn good. So it was like Johnny Cash's 9 Inch Nails cover of Hurt. But yeah, I was really happy with that. That was quite nice to look back on. I got some great comments on that one.
So yeah, I imagine when you get good comments, I can only imagine how good it feels. So I guess the plan going forward, Steve, is to keep it going. Obviously, you've got a really good community within that hashtag. Loads of content coming out on a daily basis, pretty much. I guess keep it going and keep having fun with it and see if it grows or keeps making you happy from a mental health perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any ideas about anything getting bigger, but we'd like to have a big get together, all of us, and do something maybe live. That's the sort of goal eventually, maybe to do something live, at a venue. And most of us have had a lot of mental health issues, so it'd be something that we would do for a mental health charity, because a lot of us suffered during COVID and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the thought of doing a gig terrifies me.
Have you done a gig before, Steve? Have you ever played?
I've never done a gig. I've always sat here on my kitchen table and played, and that's about it. Years ago, when I first picked up my guitar, I played in a pub to a few people, and that was just once, and it was a really good buzz. But that was sort of late 90s sort of time but yeah, no, hopefully we can get together next year. We might have some sort of little gig. It'll just be a small venue somewhere, obviously, and maybe we'll have a couple of the new artists that we follow, like on the bill as well. But we've got quite a few people interested, but we're not going to name any names at the moment. But yeah, that's hopefully the plan is to have a gig next year, Murdered Song of the Day gig with some top stars.
Amazing. That is an exclusive on the Fantastival podcast. You will, if you get out in a small venue, you will sell that place out in no time at all. You have half the Victoria community banging down your doors to get into that. So look forward to hopefully a positive announcement on that at some point, Steve. So you've mentioned how important music is to you from quite a young age, it seems. So I guess without giving away any spoilers, Steve, what music are you into?
So from the early days, the Beatles were the big thing for me. My mum and dad had loads and loads of Beatles records, like singles. So I used to just pile them up on my mum and dad's record player. You could pile them about 7 high, and they would just play one after another. So I was massive into Beatles when I was younger. So I'm 50 this year, by the way.
Oh, mate, you don't look it. I must commend you. You do not look that.
Unbelievable. So when I was about sort of 11, I kind of got obsessed a bit with Duran Duran. So Duran Duran was like my first kind of band that I was obsessed with. And then I got into Big Country. One of my pals played me a Big Country song, and I was like, no, what it was, I had like a compilation tape, and it had a Big Country song on it. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I was completely obsessed with Big Country for years, like massively obsessed with Big Country. I mean, to this day, they're still my favourite band. But I went from Big Country, and then they kind of went off the boil, sort of early 90s. I was more into rock music then. I was getting into Guns N' Roses. And so the first ever gig I went to was Wembley, Guns N' Roses, 1991. I was 17 years old. That was the first gig I ever went to. Wow. So that was pretty special. It's like, never been to London in my life. It was like, beautiful sunny day, 100 degrees. It's like, oh, wow. Just like the best ever. I just literally passed my driving test like 2 days before as well. So it's like, wow, this is amazing. But no, yeah. And then went from, I was kind of into the rock scene in the late 80s, and then the early 90s. And then Oasis came along, and Oasis just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. I think the first thing I ever heard was Supersonic on Radio 1. It was like, wow. Blew me away. But yeah, early on it was like the Beatles and the Stones and stuff from my mum and dad's records, even Cliff Richard and stuff like that. But yeah, Oasis have always been the constant since they came about. I've been into lots of other stuff, like a lot of Embrace. I wasn't into a lot of other indie stuff, to be fair. And I never really got into the Smiths. I love the Smiths now, but at the time it was like, nah, I didn't get them.
So at the moment, Steve, is there anything you're listening to at the moment? So I watched the Wham documentary last night with Sarah, with my wife, and I think I've got like a newfound appreciation of Wham. Like, I feel like I need to go and listen to Wham again. And also, ex-guests Electricity released their new album on Saturday, just gone, and I'm really enjoying that album like I knew I would, because the singles were so good. So Stevie, is anything at the moment, whether it's a new album or an old album, that you're currently listening to at the moment that you'd recommend to anyone? The Utopiates. There's a newish band called the Utopiates. I bought their album on vinyl, and I must have listened to it
100 times. I absolutely love it. It's great. It covers like so many different genres as well. So good. I wanted to watch that Wham documentary. It looks good. My pal said it was really fantastic. But
Yeah.
Again, like Wham and George Michael, I didn't appreciate it back in the day, but I love a lot of their tunes now, especially George Michael's solo stuff as well. But there's quite a lot of my musical taste has changed so much over the years. You know, stuff that I used to hate and like really hate. I love it now. It's like I've accepted the cheese.
I think that's the gift of growing older, right? So when you're young, you can be quite stubborn in what you like, and what you like is what you like. And if it's outside of your comfort zone, and you're not going to go near it. But as you get older, you can actually look back on a good pop song or whatever it is, or any genre, and go, actually, that was a really good song. I know I can quite clearly.
If it didn't have a guitar solo, I didn't want to listen to it.
Yeah, I get that. So, Steve, let me take you back into when you was a younger lad with a bit of money in your pocket. Let's go back to your first single. Do you remember what they were and buying them? And I always say on this podcast, there's no guilty pleasures, man. There's just pleasures. So whatever it was, you got to be honest with what the purchase was.
I've been dreading this one. So I was really young. So my first single was Joe Dolce, "Shut Up, Be Your Face."
Classic though, stood the test of time.
Yeah, but do you know what single it kept off the number one spot?
Oh, go on.
Ultravox Vienna.
Oh no way.
It kept Ultravox Vienna off the number one spot, so I feel quite bad for that.
to be fair,
Ultravox is a far better tune.
It is, but to be fair, they didn't do too bad in the end. The Midgers done all right.
Right.
To be fair.
My first album was Shakin' Stevens, and I think it was just called Shaky, and it had Green Door on it. And me and my friend Graham Dorrance, we used to like do the shaky dance in his bedroom to it.
I feel a murdered song of the day # Shakin' Stevens song coming if one's not been done already.
One's been done already, actually. A guy called Scotty Shaw's uncle, Eddie. I think it's TB's Soul or something he's called on Twitter. He'd done one recently, but every time when he does one, he totally transforms it into something else, his own song. So you're like, it's not until the chorus you actually get what he's actually singing. I'll maybe do Green Door one day and shake up the moves as well.
Absolutely. Look forward to seeing that. So, Steve, this is all podcast is about you getting to play your fantasy festivals. Are you a big fan of festivals? Have you been to many?
Yes, I've been to loads. Yeah. My first festival was V98, which had the Verve headlining, and Charlatans. I think David Bowie was there as well, and James Brown was there. I don't remember much about it because I was quite young and mental. But I remember watching the Verve, thinking, "Wow!" I think it was like one of the last gigs before they split up again or whatever. But yeah, that was good. So V98, V2000, and then it was about a 3-year gap, and then we done Leeds 2003, which was my favourite ever festival. I'll never forget it. So it's obviously 20 years ago this year. Me and four of my best mates. It was a beautiful weekend. Seen some amazing bands. One of my favourites was The Darkness. The Darkness had just came on the scene. And they actually blew me away. But there was Blur were headlining, Linkin Park were headlining. But my favourite sort of moment from that festival was the Doves. The Doves were playing, and we were all sitting in chairs at the back, and the sun was going down in the background, and the Doves were playing. It was just perfect, absolutely perfect. Loved it. Been to a few since, but they've never met that sort of standard. Been to a few in the parks, but my festival days are gone now.
Well, only for a short while, because they're back tonight, because you get to play at your fantasy festival.
Yeah.
So that festival, that Leeds, I mean, that 2003 Leeds sounds amazing, right? Because you've got The Darkness, who is still going very strong. You've also got Blur, who have just released a new album, or about to release a new album by the time this one comes out. Linkin Park, who is still going in some form. Obviously, they had an unfortunate loss of Chester Bennington. And Doves were still going, and obviously their frontman Jez has kind of called time out for a little while due to his own mental health. But I think that just goes to show the testament and the quality to what you saw on that festival, which obviously is very special to you, which is a great lineup. So again, festivals and gigs, you mentioned a few gigs earlier, but do you have a favourite gig at all that you look back on and go, yeah, that was my spot on favourite that you can say without spoiling your lineup?
I've been to a lot. So, as I say, Guns N' Roses at Wembley, Oasis at Main Road.
Oh, wow. Fair play.
Yeah. Oasis at Loch Lomond, right? But I can't remember a damn thing about that one.
I always remember that was the week before Nebworth, because I was at Nebworth, and I remember I always remember Loch Lomond came the weekend before Nebworth came. I always remember that for some reason. It always sticks with me.
Oasis at the Barrowlands in 2001. That's probably up there with one of the best gigs I've ever been to, because I was sober. I was sober. It was they played for like 2.5 hours. It was just like hit after hit, and they were just on fire. Kasabian at what was the Metro Arena in Newcastle. That's up there. The Snuts. I'm a massive fan of the Snuts. I've seen the Snuts about 6 or 7 times now. But the first time I seen the Snuts was in a little tiny venue called Think Tank in Newcastle, and I think it was about maybe 100 people back in maybe 2018, something like that. And Mark Sharp and the Bicycle Thieves were supporting them, and that is right up there with them gigs that I've been to. You know what I mean? It was such a buzz because I knew the Snuts were going places. But if I was to pick one, it'd be Oasis the Barrowlands. That would be my ultimate gig that I've been to. It was just Oasis right at the top. They were playing, they were tight. It was just like so good.
Fair play.
Really was.
Fair play. So like I said at the top of the podcast, the aim is getting our guests. So tonight Steve gets to collect his fantasy festivals. So Steve's in the hot seat and gets to choose any 5 acts, one of whom must play one of their studio albums in full. And Steve also gets to pick an encore, which can be any song that all 5 of his acts will perform together to end his fantasy festival. So very simple. 5 acts take 5 time slots. So for example, in the last episode of the podcast, I had Maz Ate on. He created his Mazfest Fantasy Festival. In his opening slot, he picked Hall and Oates. For the first time they've been picked. Great opening choice there. In his Super Seconds act, Maz picked Jamiroquai. In his Midway Madness slot, Maz picked Prodigy. In his pre-headline slot, making his Fantastival debut, was indeed George Michael and Wham. Great choice there from Maz. And in Maz's headline slot, he picked Stevie Wonder and had Stevie play Inner Visions in full. And for his encore, he had all 5 of his acts play Slide Away, which is amazing. I'd love to hear that with all 5 of those acts. So for any first-time listeners, that's how simple the concept is. Steve gets to pick any 5 acts for his Fantasy Festival lineup. But before he does, we need to give Steve's Fantasy Festival a name and a venue. So Steve, what are you going to call your Fantasy Festival?
So it is Tweet in the Park.
Tweet in... I see.
Not Tea in the Park, it's Tweet in the Park.
I see what you've done there, Steve. I like it. I guess the thinking behind that one is pretty obvious, right?
I'm giving it Tweet in the Park because without Twitter I wouldn't be here. So Twitter's a big thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that all through the new music community and the many music communities that are on Twitter. All right, so I've got Tweet in the Park, and you can hold it anywhere in the world. You can hold it in Barrowlands. You can take us back to Wembley Stadium on that sunny day in '91. You can take us to anywhere in the world. We could do it in the front room that you currently frequent, the famous Murdered Song of the Day front room. You can hold it anywhere that you like, Steve. So where?
No, it's got to be It's got to be on the bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Oh, we're going to the bonny banks.
Only because I can't remember a thing about being there for the last time. So I want to remember this one.
Great stuff. So we've got Tweet in the Park. We're going to the bonny banks of Loch Lomond. All right. So before we talk about your 5 acts, any acts who you want to shout out, Steve, who you love but just aren't making it into your fantasy festival lineup? Right,
okay, so there's a band called Vida, V-I-D-A. Absolutely love them. They split up a while back and got back together. They're thankfully back together now. Heavy North, love the Heavy North. Dictator Boys, they're fantastic. Utopiates, the Lathams, Skylights, Andrew Cushion, which I've seen earlier this year. He's fantastic. A band called The Raz, which China Sam is manager of. Love them. And there's a solo artist called Sylvie. I don't know if you're aware of Sylvie, but young Scottish lass. What a voice. Absolutely amazing. Honestly, I could probably rhyme off 100 to be fair, but got to stop somewhere.
Fair play. You've mentioned Heavy North, who have been guests on this very podcast, as has Dictator, and as has that young Scottish lass Sylvie many moons ago. So you mentioned some great acts who miss out on your fantasy festival. I think because you mentioned Sylvie, I must say a massive well done actually to friend of the podcast, Adi Hansen, and Moby Tanner putting on that gig in Oxford last week, and Sylvie playing that amongst a few others. Like a great gig. Well done to Adi. Well done to Moby. Hopefully you can do many more of those to showcase all the great new music out there. Sylvie's performance with another friend of the podcast, Joe Adamir, looked amazing. All right, so back to what's in store. We have a fantasy festival to collate. So Steve, we've been through your missed acts. It's now time for the famous five to take the stage. So it's 2:00. Tweet in the Park is kicking off. Bonnie Banks of Loch Lomond. You're not going to be able to have a drink for a little while, Steve, because I want you to remember this for everything that's going to happen on the stage, mate. So 2:00. So who's going to open Tweet in the Park?
So, do you remember a band called The Crooks?
Yes, I do. Yeah, so the Crook, they always used to come on when an album used to finish on my Spotify, and that's how I got into them.
It'd be In Time, was it, that came on?
Yeah, I think so.
Usually In Time, it usually comes on. Yeah, well, I was completely obsessed with The Crooks and had tickets to go and see them up in Glasgow. They were, for me, the next biggest thing. Like, I was obsessed with them, and then they quit. I was gutted. I was gutted, along with a lot of other people. But I mean, they had everything: the melodies, the guitar solos, Jacko's voice, just amazing. So I know they're not a band anymore, but can I have The Crooks?
You can have who you want. Fantasy element.
Cool.
You can have bands.
So
Active.
So the Crooks are opening. They're going to like blast the show into the stratosphere. So yeah.
All right, great choice. The first time the Crooks have been picked for Fantasy Festival, they open yours. They're playing from 2 till 3 o'clock. It's going to be a great opening set as they kick off Tweet in the Park. We'll take another half-hour break, or our first half-hour break. That'll take us to 3:30. So, Steve, who are you going to have as your super seconds in to follow the Crooks?
So another newish band. They're actually local to me. So I live in Carlisle, and this band are from Dumfries, which is only 40 miles away. They're a band called the Lutras. They've been on the go for about 9-10 years now. But they were a band I discovered during lockdown, and they play straight up great rock and roll music. It's the band called the Lutras. They'll kick the seconds in. I'm actually quite good friends with the guys now. I've probably seen them more than anybody else I've ever seen. Me and James Houston went to see them recently up in Glasgow. Such a great band, tight, and they've not got a bad song. It's just, all great melodies and choruses, and so good. They actually won like quite a big competition before COVID kicked in, and they were on their way, sort of thing. They're on their way up, and COVID's kind of knocked things back for them a bit. But I just love them. Great songs. I think they've got some more songs coming out at the end of the year. Hopefully an album. But yeah, great band. Love them.
All right, great super seconds choice. Not a band I'm familiar with, so I look forward to hearing their stuff. So if I don't say it's right, please feel free to correct me. The Lutras are going to be your super seconds act. They're going to play from 3:30 to 4:30. We'll take another half-hour break, and that will take us to 5 o'clock. It'll be time for your Midway Madness act, Steve. So 2 down, 3 to go. So who's going to be your Midway Madness act?
It's got to be the Snuts.
Fair play.
Absolutely. I go to the gym in the morning, and on Friday mornings I quite look forward to listening to my release radar on Spotify. So I'll be in the gym in the morning, and then I think about 2017, the Snuts came on my release radar and just stopped me in my tracks. Because at that point I'd kind of lost my way with new music. There wasn't much about. When I first heard the Snuts first EP, I think it was the Matador EP, the Matador and What's Going on it, and it's the first time music had given me goosebumps for years. First time a new band had given me goosebumps for a long time, and I thought, you know what, these lot are going places. These are gonna hit the big time. These guys, and now they're getting played on Radio 1 and Radio X and stuff, and it's just like, and I knew it was going to happen because they're so good. They were so good. You just know when a band are that good. You just know. So yeah, I've got a real big love for the Snuts. I've actually got a couple of pictures with Jack the singer from a couple of the earlier gigs, and I look a bit like stalkerish towards him. So yeah, no, it's got to be this nuts. Got to be this nuts.
Great choice. Second time the Snuts have been picked for a fantasy festival. So the new music legend Ricky Spence had them many moons ago as his opening act. So second time they've been chosen. So they take your Midway Madness slot. They're going to play from 5 till 6. So at 6 we'll take a half-hour break, and then that'll take us to 6:30, and we have your pre-headline act, who are going to get an hour and a half to play Tweet in the Park. So Steve, who's going to be your pre-headline act?
So, big shock to everybody, but Oasis will be my pre-headline act. Original lineup: Oasis, Boned, Tony, the whole shebang. My favourite DVD, which I pull out now and again, Live by the Sea. I think it's at Southend by the Sea, the gig. And I've watched that about 1 million times, and I never get sick of it. I just love it. I love, especially when Noel does his acoustic thing and then makes a massive fuck up and just carries on. And I don't know, just that whole gig is just like, I would give my left leg to be at that gig. It was so good, so good. But yeah, Oasis, I've seen them, Oasis, about maybe 8 times. But yeah, there's top band. They changed the whole scene of the music for me and for everybody else, basically. I mean, basically everybody I speak to on Twitter, all my friends, we all have that in common. We all have that one thing in common. The Oasis, Noel or Liam, or it's the common denominator between us all. Oasis, basically.
Yeah, great shout. Great band. Live by the Sea. So I live about 40 minutes from Southend. Obviously, I was about 13 when that video came out, so there was no chance for me ever going, but I remember being gobsmacked. And I also remember being gobsmacked at Nebworth, because in the programme they had a list of every gig they'd ever done, and it turned out they'd played the Ilford Island, which is about 10 minutes from where I used to live as a kid, and we had no idea they'd even been anywhere near Ilford, and we couldn't believe that they'd played a place with about 600 capacity, and then 2 years later we were standing there in a field with about 100,000 other sweaty kids about to walk out to them. So, all right, Oasis, are you pre-headline act? I thought Oasis might be your headline act, the way you were speaking about them. So, I think I might know who you're going to pick, but I'm not too sure for your headline act. So, 12th time Oasis get picked. They're going to play from 6:30 to 8 o'clock as your pre-headline act. That leaves one slot left, Steve, for your headline act, who are going to play from 8:30 to 11 o'clock. So, the lights are down. It's time for your headliners to come on. I think I've got a name in my head, but I don't think it is going to be them. And obviously, we've never met before, so I don't know too much about your musical taste. But Steve, who's going to headline Tweet in the Park?
So there was only ever going to be one headliner for me, a band that I've loved since I was 11 years old. Big Country. Big Country have always been the constant for me. They're very underrated. A lot of people I speak to, I've never heard anything apart from In a Big Country or Chance or, something from the first couple of albums, but they've got like 7 albums up there, and they're all absolutely fantastic. Stuart Adamson he's like an absolute legend. He was my hero, guitar hero, songwriting hero. He couldn't write a bad song. Even like The Edge from U2 was totally bigging him up. He's James Dean Bradfield. So Stuart Adamson's James Dean Bradfield's hero. Absolutely loves him. Obviously, he took his own life a few years ago, which was really sad. Again, mental health shit. It's just, I don't know, it's horrible. But yeah, I've loved them since I was 11. Kind of went off the boil when Oasis came along, but then reconnected with them about 10 years ago, and just, I don't know, bought everything again on vinyl, and just like, it's so good. There's one gig I would have loved to have been to, and it's Glasgow Barrowlands 1993. It was New Year's Eve, and they played 2 sets. So they played an acoustic set, and then they done the full-on electric set. So I would actually give up all my gigs I've ever been to go to that one concert, because I've got it on DVD and I've got it on vinyl. But honestly, I would give everything up just to go to that one gig. It's so good, and I encourage anybody to, obviously people think bagpipe guitars, but it's not. It's not. Honestly, if you listen to the later albums and stuff, it's so more accomplished than bagpipe guitars. But I've discovered a lot of pals on Twitter that love Big Country as well. So for me, that's amazing. Really, really great. Especially Paula P. Paula.
Yeah, absolutely. Again,
Yeah.
a former guest on the podcast, good friend of
Yeah,
the show.
She's a massive Big Country fan as well. So I think I've managed to persuade quite a few people to get into Big Country ever since. We've been doing this, so
Great stuff.
Every 2 or 3 months I'll do a Big Country cover just to push it out there.
Yeah, you absolutely should.
Yeah, love them. Absolutely love them. I still go and see them when they're playing. So there's only like the original guitarist and the original drummer left, but I still go and see them to this day. I love them. Absolutely love them.
So first time, Steve, they've been chosen on the Fantastival podcast. So you've introduced them into the Fantastival podcast rota. So first call up for Big Country. They get 2.5 hours to play your fantasy festival. And then once they finish at 11 o'clock, they're going to bring back out on stage Oasis, the Snuts, the Lutras, and the Crooks. And they'll get to play one song. And I'm also going to let you bring out all the Murdered Song of the Day peeps if you want, or they can be backstage on guest lists. Up to you. They can be around if they want them to be around. All get to play one song of your choice, Steve. What are you going to have all your 5 acts play to close your fantasy festival?
We're all going to do Champagne Supernova together.
Very nice, very nice. Is that one of your favourite Oasis songs? And I take it.
I think that would just finish the festival perfectly. Maybe have Johnny Marr come out as well at the end and play some guitar solo on it. Yeah. It's a nice way to finish it off, I think.
Yeah, great way. Epic ending to an epic fantasy festival. So let's lock this one in before any minds get changed or any lineups change. So we've got Tweet in the Park taking place in the Bonnie Banks, a lot Lomond. In your opening act, we have got the Crooks, followed by the Lutras as your Super Seconds act. We got the Snuts playing your Midway Madness slot. We got Oasis as your pre-headline act, with Big Country headlining your fantasy festival. Any acts going to play an album at all, Steve? You want any albums played in full at your fantasy festival?
Yeah, I'd like Big Country to play the Buffalo Skinners. So the Buffalo Skinners was their 5th album, which came out in 1993, and it was an absolute return to form, but nobody had it. But it's probably my favourite album of all time. And an album which you put on and you can listen to right through and there's not a bad song. Absolutely love it. It was a proper rocker.
All right, I look forward to listening to it, definitely. So the Buffalo Skinners gets played in full at your fantasy festival, and all 5 of your acts are going to play Champagne Supernova to close. Steve, sounds like an amazing fantasy festival to me. Are you happy to lock that one into the Fantastival vaults?
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. It's been great, yeah.
Wicked. All right,
absolutely.
So that is confirmed, Steve. That is done. That is forever consigned to history. And it will take its place amongst the many other great fantasy festivals on this podcast. So, Steve, before we finished you've mentioned and we've talked about the future. It sounds like you're really in a good place in terms of where the hashtag is and where your kind of own output is. What are you looking forward to, I guess, in the future in terms of Murder Song of the Day? Have you got any gigs coming up? Have you got any albums you're looking forward to? What lies ahead for you?
Might be releasing a single.
Oh.
So maybe we'll see. I've started writing my own songs, and a couple of them are pretty good. So, and I didn't know how good they were until James and Ian came to my house, and we actually started working on them. So James has got an absolute cracker of a song as well, which Ian Franks just covered on Murder Song of the Day. So I'm hoping it's on my bucket list because I'm 50 this year. I want to release a single. That's my goal. I would love to release a single. So even if it's just one, I'll be happy. I'm not bothered about an album. Just one song will be fine.
That's how it starts, Steve. You'll be going just one single, and then you'll drop that single, and you'll be like, maybe one more, and then before you know it, you've got an album ready to go, mate.
I can't write a good song like that anymore. I've tried since to write a few songs, but it's like, nah. I'm not an actual songwriter at all. But when they come to me, I can write them in minutes, but they don't come to me very often. So we'll see.
All right. So potential single. The hashtag's going to keep going, right? So Murder Song of the Day keeps going. And for anyone who doesn't follow you on Twitter, Steve, so if someone's listening and isn't aware of you on Twitter, where does someone find you if they want to give you a follow and the rest of the guys?
Yeah, just hashtag Murder Song of the Day. Look up Stevie T on Twitter. Let's say if you're even considering posting a song, just whack it on Murder Song of the Day. You'll get nothing but absolutely fantastic comments of everybody. Everybody's so lovely. Honestly, it's like such a buzz. It's such a buzz putting stuff on there, and for me now, it's a buzz that other people want to use it. I never dreamed or thought that anybody would want to use it. And now we're over 2 years down the line, and more people are wanting to use it. It's just like it's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing, and I love it, and I will never change it. And a lot of people say you shouldn't call it Murdered Song of the Day anymore because everybody's so good, but I can't change it now, can I?
No, I think that's what it will be forever known as. But mate, massive congrats on that. It's amazing. It's great to see the community you've built up, and again, from a mental health perspective, it sounds like it's done wonders for you, but not only you, but for several other people. So I can only commend you on all that fantastic work, Steve. So everyone, that is it. Thank you for listening to the 135th episode of the Fantastival podcast. And if you've enjoyed this one, please subscribe. So you can do two things to help out the podcast. You can give us a review on iTunes. So if you're listening on iTunes, you can go and review the podcast. Or if you're listening on Spotify, you can go and rate the show, and you can even comment on the episode. Now, I say this every week, but the reviews and rate the shows have dried up. So if you're listening and haven't done so, please do that, because it's a nice thing to do, and it also pushes up the podcast on the algorithms on the old platforms. Like Steve said, he's on Twitter, so is the podcast. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, please do so. You can find us at FantastivalP. You can also find us on TikTok, and you can also email us if you'd like to do so at fantastivalpodcast@outlook.com. Unfortunately, we don't play music on this podcast, but I'll get some tracks from Steve of the acts he's spoken about in this. We'll make a nice little Spotify playlist, and if you scroll down on your episode description, you'll be able to find a link to that playlist. Go into it, check out some Big Country, check out some The Snuts, go and check out some tracks by the Crooks, amazing band, taken or finished up far too soon. There's some great tunes there to be had. So Steve, 135 done and dusted. You said you were nervous. You're flying solo on this one. I've really enjoyed your company. I think you've come across really well, but how have you found it?
Pretty cool, man. Pretty cool, yeah. You made me feel at ease early on, so yeah, no, it's good. It was good. I knew it'd be okay, but it's just the thought of doing it. It's just like I've never done anything like this before, so it's quite nerve-wracking to begin with, especially when my two pals dropped out.
Yeah, so James Houston and Scott, at some point, the Fantastival podcast will come looking for you. But Steve, appreciate you coming on. Been a great guest. Best of luck for the future with Murdered Song of the Day. Look forward to the single and hopefully a live gig at some point with the rest of the guys. That'll be amazing. So that is 135 done. Like I said, I'll be back next week with episode number 136. So please make sure to join me. But until then, stay safe, my Fantastival friends. Please continue to spread the word. And that word is Fantastival. Thanks for listening.